Testimony is underway in the third week of the criminal hush money trial involving former President Donald Trump. Today, the judge in the case held Trump in contempt of court for violating a gag order. Judge Juan Merchan says Trump violated the order not one, but 9 times and fined him, well, $1,000 each, total of $9,000. CBS News correspondent Errol Barnett is following this for us outside the courthouse in Manhattan. Errol, you've been there day in and day out. Talk to us about this decision today. This is new news this morning, and the warning to Trump that it's not just about paying fines. He could end up in jail for this.
That's exactly right, Lilia. Judge Juan Merchan now instituting some level of punishment to former President Donald Trump for what he says is a clear violation.
Okay, so the courtroom tension just reached a breaking point. Special Counsel Jack Smith presented evidence that legal analysts are calling irrefutable evidence that proves Trump's guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. Secret memos, digital communications, insider testimony, security footage, all of it showing Trump's direct involvement in criminal conduct, in coordinating efforts to overturn the 2020 election, in obstructing Congress and pressuring officials to violate their constitutional duties. And the judge's reaction was unprecedented, a direct threat of jail time. Not hypothetical, not someday, maybe, imminent jail time if Trump continues violating court orders and undermining proceedings. The judge looked at Trump and said, "This court will have to consider a jail sanction. The last thing I want to do is put you in jail, but I will if necessary." That's a sitting judge threatening a former president with immediate incarceration in open court with everyone watching. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
An indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced.
Special Counsel Jack Smith is telling Republicans, game on. In a letter just released from his attorneys to Congressman Jim Jordan and Senator Chuck Grassley, the chairs of the House and Senate Judiciary Committee, Jack Smith is offering to testify, but he wants to do so in a public hearing about the investigations he conducted.
This isn't just about contempt violations anymore. This is about the overwhelming evidence Smith presented. Evidence so strong that even judges who've been sympathetic to Trump are now acknowledging that conviction is all but certain, that jail time is appropriate, that Trump's conduct has been so egregious that extraordinary sanctions are justified. Judge Eileen Cannon, who's been criticized for being too favorable to Trump, even she looked at Smith's evidence and called it outcome determinative, said it's historic, said it proves criminal conduct. That's a Trump-friendly judge acknowledging that the evidence against Trump is overwhelming. Judge Juan Merchan went further, made the direct jail threat, said Trump's repeated violations of court orders can't continue, that fines aren't working, that warnings aren't working, that the only remaining sanction is jail, and that if Trump violates court orders again, he's going to jail immediately. The courtroom was in shock when Smith presented his evidence, because it's not just strong evidence, it's irrefutable evidence. Evidence that proves Trump knew he lost the election, that he knowingly promoted false claims about fraud, that he pressured state officials to reverse legitimate election results, that he coordinated the fake electors scheme, all of it documented, all of it proven beyond doubt. Smith's official report states that the evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. That's the special counsel saying, we can prove Trump's guilt. We have everything we need for a successful prosecution. The only reason Trump wasn't prosecuted is because of DOJ policy against indicting sitting presidents. But that policy is temporary. The evidence is permanent. And the moment Trump leaves office, prosecution can resume with this overwhelming evidence. The specific evidence Smith presented includes secret memos from Trump's closest advisors, documents showing Trump being told repeatedly that he lost the election, that the fraud claims were baseless, that his legal challenges had no merit, and Trump acknowledging all of this in private while publicly claiming the opposite, that proves Trump knowingly lied, that he was deliberately spreading false information about the election. That's fraud. That's conspiracy. That's exactly what Smith has been investigating. Digital communications show coordination between Trump and his allies. Emails and texts discussing how to pressure Pence, how to organize fake electors, how to pressure state officials, all of it creating a documented timeline of the conspiracy, proving that multiple people were working together toward the illegal goal of overturning a legitimate election and proving Trump was directing it. Insider testimony fills in the gaps. People who were in the room with Trump, who heard him acknowledge he lost but say he wasn't going to concede, who heard him plan how to pressure officials, who heard him discuss using the January 6th rally to create chaos. These witnesses can testify about Trump's intent, about his knowledge, about his deliberate decision to pursue illegal means to stay in power. Security footage apparently shows meetings and events that corroborate the documentary evidence, and witness testimony, visual proof of who met with whom and when, proof that contradicts Trump's claims about what he knew and when he knew it. All of this evidence together creates what prosecutors call an airtight case, multiple types of evidence all pointing to the same conclusion. Trump committed crimes. He did so knowingly and willfully, and the proof is overwhelming. The judge's language about Trump's conduct being a criminal undertaking is particularly significant, because that's not just legal jargon. That's a judge formally characterizing Trump's actions as criminal, as an organized effort to commit illegal acts. That characterization matters. It affects how the case is perceived, how juries will view it, how appellate courts will review it. When a judge calls something a criminal undertaking, that's powerful language that signals how serious the conduct was. Legal analysts are saying that even formerly sympathetic judges now see jail time as appropriate. That tells you how strong the evidence is, how egregious Trump's conduct has been. When judges who've been inclined to give Trump leniency are now saying he should go to jail, that's a dramatic shift. That's the evidence overwhelming any sympathy they might have had. That's Trump's conduct being so serious that even friendly judges can't defend him anymore. The courtroom chaos when all of this was presented reflects everyone understanding the magnitude. Trump's lawyers looking panicked, knowing their defenses just got destroyed, court observers gasping at the specificity and strength of the evidence, reporters scrambling to get the news out because this is the moment everyone has been waiting for, the moment when the full evidence of Trump's crimes became public, when the case against him became undeniable, when it became clear that if Trump ever faces trial, he's going to be convicted and sent to prison. All right, so let's dig into the specific evidence Smith presented and why it proves Trump's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The secret memos are incredibly damaging because they show what Trump was being told by his own advisors. These aren't documents from Trump's enemies. These are internal White House documents. Memos from Trump's lawyers, from his campaign staff, from his advisors, all telling him the same thing. You lost. The election was legitimate. The fraud claims are false. There's no legal path to overturning the results. These memos are dated. They're authenticated. They prove that Trump had accurate information about the election, that he was told by people he trusted that he lost, and that he chose to ignore that information and pursue illegal means to stay in power anyway. One particularly damaging memo apparently comes from Trump's own campaign lawyers. They conducted an analysis of the fraud claims being pushed by Rudy Giuliani, and others investigated each claim and concluded that none of them had merit, that there was no significant fraud, that the election results were accurate, and they presented this analysis to Trump. There's a memo documenting that presentation, documenting Trump's receipt of this information. And then there are subsequent documents showing Trump continuing to promote the fraud claims anyway. That proves Trump knew the claims were false, that he was lying deliberately, that his entire post-election strategy was based on knowingly false information. The digital communications show the conspiracy in action. Emails between Trump's associates discussing how to organize fake electors, how to pressure state officials, how to delay or prevent certification. These aren't vague discussions. These are specific operational plans with timelines, with assigned responsibilities, with clear illegal goals. One set of emails apparently discusses the fake elector scheme in detail, how to recruit people to serve as fake electors, how to create official-looking documents, how to submit those documents to Congress, and how to create confusion on January 6th that would prevent certification. The emails show Trump's associates knew this was legally questionable at best, There are discussions about whether it's legal, whether they could get in trouble, but the decision is made to proceed anyway. And there are references to Trump approving the plan, to Trump being kept informed of progress. That directly implicates Trump in the conspiracy. Another set of communications discusses pressuring Mike Pence. There are emails laying out the legal theory that Pence could refuse to certify electoral votes. Discussions about how to pressure Pence to do this, plans for the January 6th rally as a way to create pressure, and references to Trump being involved in these discussions. The communications create a clear timeline. They show Trump was part of the planning, was directing strategy, was making decisions about how to execute the conspiracy. The insider testimony brings all of this to life. These are people who were in rooms with Trump, who heard conversations that weren't documented, who can testify about Trump's state of mind and intent. One particularly damaging witness apparently testified about being in the Oval Office when Trump's attorney general told him there was no significant election fraud. The witness describes Trump's reaction, Trump acknowledging the information but saying he was going to keep claiming fraud anyway, saying he needed to keep his supporters energized, saying he wasn't going to concede even though he knew he lost. That testimony proves Trump's intent, proves he was acting in bad faith, proves this wasn't about genuine belief in fraud, it was about deliberately lying to stay in power. Another witness apparently testified about January 6th specifically, about Trump being told that the crowd was getting violent, that they'd breached the Capitol, that people were in danger, and Trump refusing to call them off, saying they were doing what they needed to do, saying Pence deserved it. That testimony proves Trump knew what was happening, that he approved of the violence, that he saw it as serving his goals of preventing certification. That's damning evidence of Trump's intent and his willingness to use violence to achieve illegal goals. The security footage apparently includes video from the White House, showing meetings between Trump and key conspirators, showing Trump with people who later participated in the fake elector scheme or in pressuring state officials. This visual evidence corroborates the documentary evidence and witness testimony. It proves Trump was meeting with the people involved in the conspiracy, that he was part of the planning and coordination. Smith's report describing this as an unprecedented criminal effort to overturn the election in order to retain power is the official characterization from the special counsel that language matters. Because it's not just Smith's opinion, it's his official conclusion after years of investigation, after reviewing millions of documents, after interviewing hundreds of witnesses, after presenting evidence to grand juries. Smith is saying that Trump engaged in unprecedented criminal conduct, that his goal was to overturn a legitimate election, that his motive was retaining power illegally. That's an extremely serious accusation from a special counsel, and it's backed by overwhelming evidence. The judge's acknowledgement that this evidence is outcome determinative essentially tells Trump's lawyers that if this goes to trial, they're going to lose. There's no viable defense. The evidence is too strong. Trump's guilt is too clear. They should be preparing for sentencing, not for acquittal. Judge Merchan's threat of jail for contempt violations is based on Trump's pattern of defying court orders. Trump has violated gag orders repeatedly, has attacked witnesses and jurors, has tried to intimidate people involved in his cases. Each violation, judges have fined him, warned him, but he keeps doing it. And Judge Merchan is now saying fines don't work, warnings don't work. The only sanction left is jail. That's how contempt works. Courts have escalating sanctions. Start with warnings, move to fines. And if those don't work, they use jail. Trump has exhausted the lesser sanctions, so jail is next. The judge made this explicit, said this is the last thing I want to do, but if Trump violates court orders again, he's going to jail immediately, no more warnings, no more fines, just arrest and detention. That threat hanging over Trump changes everything, because Trump has been counting on being able to intimidate witnesses, to influence potential jurors through public statements, to create an atmosphere where people are afraid to testify against him. But if one more violation means jail, Trump has to choose. Is attacking witnesses worth going to jail? Is violating gag orders worth losing his freedom? For someone who's never faced real consequences before, that's a terrifying choice. And it might actually force Trump to comply with court orders. For the first time, the connection to Trump's broader legal collapse is important because this isn't happening in isolation. Trump is losing in multiple jurisdictions. Multiple courts are ruling against him. The Supreme Court refused to intervene. Congress is blocking his power grabs. Everything is going wrong simultaneously, and the cumulative effect is devastating. Trump can't fight on all these fronts at once. He's overwhelmed. His legal team is overwhelmed, and the evidence against him keeps getting stronger. The fact that this evidence would have resulted in conviction except for DOJ policy is crucial because that policy only applies to sitting presidents. Trump won't be president forever. And the moment he leaves office, this evidence is still here. Smith's case is still built. Prosecutors can resume, and when they do, they have everything they need for conviction. Trump knows this. He knows that leaving office means facing prosecution with evidence that proves his guilt. That's why he's so desperate to stay in power, why he's willing to violate laws and norms, because he understands that losing power means going to prison. Okay, so let's break down what Smith's irrefutable evidence and the judge's jail threat mean for Trump's immediate future and his legal jeopardy. Point 1, evidence that proves Trump knew he lost but tried to overturn the election anyway establishes both knowledge and intent for criminal prosecution. That's the trifecta prosecutors need. They need to prove Trump knew what he was doing, that he intended to break the law, and that he actually took illegal actions. Smith's evidence proves all three. The memos prove Trump knew he lost. The testimony proves he intended to stay in power anyway. The communications prove he took illegal actions to achieve that goal. That's everything needed for conviction. Point 2, a judge threatening Trump with immediate jail time for contempt represents the most serious personal consequence Trump has faced. Trump has been fined before, has lost civil cases, has been convicted of crimes, but he's never faced jail. Never had a judge look him in the eye and say, "One more violation and you're going to a cell." That's terrifying for someone like Trump, someone who's always been able to avoid consequences, someone who's never had to comply with authority. The jail threat might actually force Trump to change his behavior, to comply with court orders because the alternative is too frightening. Point 3, Smith's official report stating the evidence was sufficient for conviction creates a roadmap for future prosecution. The report lays out the entire case, details all the evidence, explains how it proves each element of the crimes. That report becomes the blueprint. Any prosecutor who takes over this case has everything they need. They don't have to start from scratch. They can pick up where Smith left off, use his evidence, follow his legal theories, and pursue conviction with confidence because Smith has already done the work. Point 4, even Trump-friendly judges acknowledging the evidence is overwhelming eliminates Trump's ability to claim bias or persecution. When judges who've been sympathetic to Trump say the evidence proves his guilt, Trump can't claim it's all political, can't claim judges are out to get him. Even friendly judges are saying he's guilty. That's because the evidence is irrefutable, because his crimes are proven beyond doubt, and no amount of judicial sympathy can overcome clear evidence of criminal conduct. Point 5, the convergence of overwhelming evidence and jail threats creates maximum pressure on Trump to either comply with court orders or face immediate incarceration. Trump is at a decision point. He can continue his pattern of defiance and go to jail, or he can comply with court orders and avoid jail. There's no middle ground anymore. The judge has made that clear. One more violation equals jail, so Trump has to choose. And whatever he chooses reveals who he really is. If he complies, it shows he was only defiant when there were no real consequences. If he violates again, it shows he's willing to go to jail rather than comply with authority. So what's the bottom line? Special Counsel Jack Smith presented irrefutable evidence in court. Secret memos proving Trump knew he lost. Digital communications proving he coordinated illegal efforts to overturn the election. Insider testimony proving his intent and knowledge. Security footage corroborating everything. All of it adding up to overwhelming proof of Trump's guilt. Judge threatening Trump with immediate jail time if he continues violating court orders. Saying contempt sanctions will include incarceration if Trump doesn't comply, making clear this isn't a hypothetical threat but an imminent consequence. Even Trump-friendly judges acknowledging the evidence is outcome determinative, calling it historic, saying it proves criminal conduct, admitting the conviction is all but certain if Trump faces trial with this evidence. Smith's official report stating the evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction. That's the special counsel saying we proved Trump's guilt, we can convict him. The only thing preventing prosecution is his office. But that protection is temporary. The courtroom in shock at the strength and specificity of the evidence. Trump's lawyers in chaos, realizing their defenses just got destroyed. Observers understanding this is the moment Trump's guilt became undeniable. Legal analysts saying jail time is now appropriate given Trump's pattern of violations and the overwhelming evidence of his crimes. That even sympathetic judges recognize Trump has gone too far. This is the moment of reckoning, the moment when the full evidence of Trump's crimes became public, when a judge threatened him with jail, when it became clear that if Trump ever faces trial, he's going to be convicted and imprisoned. Trump knows this. He sees the evidence. He hears the jail threat. He understands that his legal situation is desperate, that he's run out of defenses, that the only thing protecting him is political power. And if he loses that power, he goes to prison. That's why Trump is so desperate, why he's willing to violate every norm and law, because he understands the stakes, understands that losing means prison, that the evidence against him is irrefutable, that his guilt is proven. This is Trump's nightmare, fully realized, the evidence presented, the jail threat made, the conviction all but certain, and no way out.